Welcome back to another episode of the Hey New Friends podcast. Thank you for kicking it with us.
You all to go ahead and to write your affirmation for the new year. What do you want to focus on for the new year? How are you going to bring those things in? And so for me, I went home and I rethought about, what it was that I said I was going to do in the new year. But I also thought, it's one thing to have an affirmation, but it's another thing to put the necessary steps into those affirmations, right?
That's pretty much where I'm at with it. Yeah.
Because faith without works is what?
Dead.
Ding, ding, ding. So I think when I think about the affirmations and really having power and really honestly believing in what you say, because we say a lot of things and sometimes we may not believe in what we're saying. And I think it's really important that you can look in the mirror and really face yourself with those affirmations and be proud of what it is that you're saying and knowing that you're putting the necessary action into work to make those affirmations come true in your life.
Right.
So, Carter, when you think about your affirmation for the new year, what is it that you think about the most?
I think about just doing the inner work and healing. That's what I think about the most. And so, like you said, it's putting action to those affirmations. So if I were to say I am healed, if I would say I am not an overthinker or something like that, like I can say those things, but if I'm not putting action steps behind it, so it's like it won't make sense. So you can't put it out into the atmosphere, but we don't want y'all to feel like you can just say something every day in the mirror and not do the work. So I just have to put action steps behind that.
Yeah, and even when talking about healing looks differently to everybody. What I would say is healed. You may not say it's healed, and it's not a linear process either. You backslide sometime. It's not like, oh, okay, I'm healed today, and tomorrow you're like, you know what? Grief hit me real heavy.
Yeah, because sometimes I think people do that. Like they wake up and be like, okay, I'm going to say these things over and over and over, and then that's just my reality. But they negate, like I said, to do the work. So on the other side of that, it's like, okay, I'm telling myself I'm these things every day in the mirror, but am I really trying to convince myself that I'm these things, or am I really doing the work to be that person? So, yeah.
And what would you say are some of those things that look like healing to you?
I think for me, it just looks like being 100% comfortable with myself, like in all aspects of how I approach life, comfortable with my way of thinking, comfortable with like my presence and what that brings and what that means to people when I walk into a space and like how I show up. So yeah, that's what it looks like.
Yeah, and see, for me, I think it's more so I'm the only one who can see it, but other people can feel it.
Right.
So it's an internal glow that you have when you've pretty much made peace with your past. You've made peace with everything.
I know they definitely say you grow different. Like you glow different when you do the work. Like you can see it. Like you can walk. She can walk into that room. He can walk into that room, and you like it's an anointing on that life. Like
and so
a blessing on that life.
But what would be the difference between? Because I feel like you can be broken and anointed.
Facts. You can. I mean, God uses all of your pieces.
Right. As a whole to come together for the collective of a story. But I think, when you think about those things, what is something you would have told your younger self, to prevent some of the self-inflicted pain that you went through?
So something that I would have told, you got to take life in stages. So then there's like 16-year-old me, there's 21-year-old me. So which one you saying?
Whoever you feel led to talk about at the moment.
Okay, so what would I have told, something I would have told my younger self to help me with my affirmation that I just said?
I mean, whatever you feel led to share at the moment.
I think something I would have told my younger self was, what I said last episode, for real. Like, you are enough. it's okay to really feel like you are enough and not to second guess who you are. Like I said, your way of thinking. I think that for me sometimes it's more like not necessarily the comparison game, but you being my best friend, I second guess myself a lot. Like I'll have 500 ideas and they could be really good ideas, but I will have something that makes me second guess each one of those because it's like maybe I feel like I fall short in the category. So, and I'm always preaching, ironically, I'm always preaching, use what's in your hands, be 100% comfortable with who you are and show up as your authentic self. But in that, I need to tell myself that you are enough. And so I would have started telling myself that maybe at 15 or 16 when I was trying to compete with people that I knew I was different from. Like I was just different, but I wanted so badly to like fit in with these groups of people or these friends that I just allowed peer pressure and the need to like fit in, like take over my entire image. And like internally, I'm like, this ain't really me. Like, this ain't really how I should be acting, or these aren't the people I should be hanging around. Like, this ain't really my crowd, but, I like the way she dresses, so I should probably hang with her. Like, that didn't make sense back then. And so I would legitimately tell myself that you are enough and be comfortable with who you are, show up as your authentic self and walk into those spaces and own them. And don't feel a way that people might be intimidated by how you show up. Because I think that sometimes when you think that people, when you have power within and you have a big personality, sometimes it's easy to walk into a space and shrink and not be that person because you want people to be okay with you. But I would just show up as that. And I mean, if my energy just annoyed people, it just would have did that. Like, that's
but
it.
What would you say are the necessary steps that you took to, get to a point in your life where you feel like I am enough,
I think I don't even know if it was necessary steps. I think you get to a point where you be tired of fighting God's purpose. Like, you feel like he calls you to do something and you continue to shy away from it. But then you continue to be in situations where you're miserable because me personally, like when I was in them seasons, I hated my jobs. But yet I was applying to them same type of jobs, trying to show up in those same spaces, make myself fit into a bubble or fit into a world that I just knew I didn't belong. But I wanted to because I went to school for that. Like I wanted to because I got that degree. Like I ain't spend all this money not to show up in that space and be that person. But then you get so frustrated and you get annoyed and you just be like, okay, God, like this isn't what I want to do. These aren't like this. When I think about my life or what that looks like, this ain't it. And so like, but how can I get to the next step if I don't have a degree in that field, Right. I don't have experience in that field. I don't know anybody in that industry. And so, and that just goes back when you say, okay, you are enough. Like you put this desire in my heart, you put these gifts in my hands, and I need to utilize that to get to the next level.
And also it being a form of disrespect to God, right? When you're in those moments that you know that you are not being purpose driven,
right?
That you are not following,
that you might just be chasing a check.
Yeah. That you're just chasing a check, or you're doing something just to chase the check, and the check never comes because it's not within your purpose.
That's yeah. Definitely.
Because we get caught up in different things.
Yeah.
Especially when like God has called me to do this, or this is my purpose.
Yeah.
And you're not fulfilling those things. And I think, it makes the journey so much harder than what it has to be, because you could at least, I know had I followed some of my inclinations that God gave me, I would probably be a lot further in life. But, because of fear, because of thinking about, like, what other people thought or how this would look to everybody else, or, not growing up in a church and, feeling all of these different type of ways, or thinking about my calling and my purpose, I would probably be a lot further. But I'm, paralyzed with fear.
And, that's real.
And, God didn't give us...
Yeah.
He didn't give us a heart of fear, for us to feel like we are holding ourselves back and not necessarily being purpose driven. I know for me, not necessarily my 16 or 18-year-old self, but maybe about my mature 20s, I would definitely have told myself, like, date everybody.
Like, that is a word.
Like, honestly, and I wish someone would have told me a little bit earlier
how to date.
Yeah, yep. Taught me how to date and taught me to date multiple people, because I think we have an idea of what we want And I know for me, I looked at a list I wrote last year of like I think it was like I did a 15 top 15 things in a man that I wanted, right?
Girl, I have one of those lists.
And then I went down
and
to 10.
I have a list in like multiple journals. So I be sitting here looking at myself like, girl, you got a list.
but and so from my 15, I was like, okay, 15, that's a lot. I went down to 10, and then I went down to my top 5, right? These are my non-negotiables. The rest of the other 10, I could compromise somewhere.
Yeah.
But just looking at that list from last year compared to what I would write now, you know, it's totally different. And a lot of that is because of experience, because of different things that I've learned, because of what different men have taught me or different boys have taught me, you know, in my life, that I was always the one, you know, in a committed relationship. I've been in a committed relationship.
Me too.
Like pretty much.
I'm always the relationship friend.
Yeah, like I've been in a committed relationship pretty much like my whole life. I mean, these last 3 years of me being single is the first time that I've ever just been, you know, single by myself. Like, you know.
But what does that feel like?
I mean, it feels good because I date. I date who I want to. I talk to who I want to. I stop talking to them when I don't like something. But it also helps me discover who I am. It helps me walk in who I am, right? And I'm always trying to figure out, like, you know, what is this guy supposed to be teaching me at the moment? And so,
how do you know he's supposed to be teaching you something?
Girl, everything is a lesson. Like, I ain't taking no
L's. So you're saying it could be like a good lesson or a bad lesson, but
no, nothing is bad. Because perspective is everything. Perspective is reality, right? And so, like, the guy that I talk to now, he'll tell me, like, talk nicely to me, right?
Yeah.
And so that's my lesson in being softer. That's my
I like that. I like the way you put that.
You know, that's my lesson in being softer, being nicer, using different words, you know, not necessarily raising my voice, learning how to channel my energy in a more feminine way that I don't have to, you know, to express how I feel or to express my opinion or even my frustration, that I can be in a calm voice, that I don't have to.
Ooh, a calm voice.
Yeah, like, you know, I don't have to elevate up here. I don't, you know, have to turn up, or it don't have to be any of this, like, and you know.
To get your point across?
Yeah, and it's like a calm.
That probably feels really good because it's like more peaceful.
I mean, but it's a slap in the face too, right? Because it's like, I wouldn't consider myself as a person who is like, oh, you know, loud or really turned up or, you know, just does the most or anything like that. But I do find myself like raising my voice or, you know, elevating.
Yeah, but see, your pitch definitely does elevate in certain situations.
And sometimes it's excitement, you know, it's all type of different feelings. And he like talk nicely to me. And so I'm like, okay. You know, it's
you just say, okay, I can only imagine what that looks like.
I mean, because it's not a bad thing.
It's not. It is not.
So when I'm thinking about like the woman that I want to be, who I want to show up as, right? And what this looks like in these moments, I'm okay with taking that from him.
Yeah.
And, you know, because I'm not changing me for the worse. So when I leave this, I'm still going to recognize Tanisha. I'm still going to know, exactly who I am in those moments, that it was a good quality, you know, that he stopped and he told me that. And so when you know, thinking about these situations of what I'm picking up and thinking about like all of these collective stories that I have, you know, that's like, oh, this made me a better woman from dating.
I think that's commendable that you're able to look back and say that. Like, you're able to say that, like, okay, this was the lesson. Like, you know, it's extremely commendable, because I think sometimes we don't. Like, we just talked about doing the work. We don't do that. Like, we just hop out the situation and just maybe sometimes place the blame on the other person. Oh, I just didn't like this. I didn't like that. Blah, blah, blah. But we don't never just really be like, oh, well, this is the part I played in it too. Or this might have been the perspective that I took, which was all wrong. But now I can admit that hindsight, but I couldn't admit that in the moment.
And I can't sit here and say that, you know, but I think that's a part of really listening to understand and not listening to respond, because a lot of times,
another word.
A lot of times, you know, we're trying to argue. I need to get my point across. I need to make sure that I said this, and who is the loudest and who said what.
Yeah.
And did he hear me? And did I hurt his feelings? Or, just that conflict type of thing. And so, I always say Libras are some of my favorite people, and you all definitely like value that balance.
Libra gang. gang.
And you all value that balance and
that harmony.
The harmony and the compromise piece of it. And so I'm like, okay, this might work for me,
Yeah, we definitely are more of the negotiators and the compromise people. Like, it's like, okay, how can we make this work for the both of us?
Yeah, and me, I'm like emotions aside, like,
girl, I wish, like, we night and day in that area, because I'm emotional. Here it is on the table. These are my emotions. Here's the list of my emotions and how I'm feeling, and my heart is on my sleeve. Like, that's me. That's me.
And so that's what I would just tell my younger self. Like, I wish I would have started just like dating earlier, that I didn't feel the need to be tied down or to be committed. And not that I wanted to be promiscuous, not that I wanted to go.
No, I think you just naturally want to attach yourself to somebody, like, oh, this is my person. And it's easier to just say you already have your person than to date a bunch of people, get to know a bunch of people. Because I think that's what it is when it comes to dating sometimes. Like, nobody wants to small talk, but that's a conversation for a whole nother episode.
In our head, when we think about these plans that we have, because if it was up to me, your girl would have been married at 25, and I would be on the third kid in my mind, right? But not.
I could not even imagine you with a third kid right now.
Me either, right? But at 20, that was the goal. So I was dating for marriage.
I was just never like, that type. So like y'all, like all my friends would know what type of ring they might have wanted, what type of dress they wanted, what type of wedding they wanted, and I never dreamed of those things. And so I used to always question myself, like, do you not want to be married? Because what young girl doesn't think about those things? And so now, I'm almost approaching 30, and I still don't really be thinking about what the dress should look like, what the ring should look like. And so then I be asking God, like, is marriage in my cards? Because, why don't I have these strong inclinations, like, ooh, I want to be married right now, and this is the dress I want. Like, why don't I get that?
I think it's one of those things of, like, I bought into the American dream, baby. So when you think about the American dream, you get educated, you go to college, you hopefully you find your high school or your college sweetheart
in the mix.
In the mix. Y'all get engaged, you get married. You maybe get a dog, travel, whatever you gonna do.
And then you have some kids.
And then you have some kids. And that's your happily ever after. And as an evolved woman and developing woman, I know that, it don't always look like that.
Definitely not, because I guess, another thing I probably would have told myself would have been to do away with timelines, because it don't make sense. Because if I followed the dream and what you would have said, I would have been sitting here right now like, really, dang, I'm doing life backwards. Like, even buying a house was backwards. Like, I should have bought a house with a partner. Right. Like, but that's just not how I think. So
yeah, and so, this is your last year of your 20s.
Oh.
How are you feeling?
I read somewhere that, like this year, like something about, the zodiac sign, astrology things, like something was shifting in the years of whatever I was going through for the last 6 years. It has finally come to an end. I really need to research that, because I saw that and I was like, whoa, like that's right before my 30th birthday. Like, what a blessing. Like, it was something about the energy had transferred, like Saturn into Jupiter or something. But I was just kind of like, well, now that I think about that, that is a lot.
Yeah. So. I mean, but they keep saying 30 is the new 20, baby.
So, I guess not even necessarily in hindsight, but I used to always joke and be like, 30 is going to be 30, flirty, and thriving. Like, that's what I was going to be.
You did say that.
I used to say it all the time, like 30, flirty, and thriving. That's what my 30th birthday is going to be like. That's what the year is going to be like. And again, it did not include like a partner or anything like that. And I think at the time it was more so because like I just was having bad relationships. So I just didn't see it. So like a lot of my dating in my 20s was tiring. It was heavy. It was like, ooh, I'm all in. Like, we about to get married. I guess I did think it at some point. But like going into my 30s, I'm just hoping for a whole new leaf. Like, I want it to look completely upside down, 365 or 360, whatever. 360. No, you gotta say 180.
What, 365 days or 360
No, when you do a
degrees?
spin, What's half of that?
360 degrees, 180, baby.
That's really what you gotta do, 180. Like, you just turning. So I just want it to look different. Like, I want it to look like the other half. Like, I don't. I'm gonna be bad. That's what it is. Like, it bad in every sense of the word of who I want to be for myself, and like I said, like how I want to show up. So I'm gonna speak all these affirmations that we've been declaring. I'm gonna speak them over my life, and I'm just gonna declare that my 30s are going to be my best like years of my life, because I know they say college is, but unfortunately for me, college was work. Like, yeah, so I didn't do a lot of the partying in college that everybody was doing freshman year. I didn't do all of the spring break trips that people was taking. Like, on breaks, I was working, like, or I was taking extra classes. And so it's crazy because I know you graduated early, but I had the opportunity to graduate early from ODU, and I didn't want to leave my friends. So my last year of college, the last 2 semesters that we had or whatever, I was working. Like, I had one class maybe. One class both semesters because I didn't want to graduate. I could have been graduated, but I didn't want to leave my friends, so I just took that one class that semester, and I worked the entire time. So now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, dang, I could have had a master's too. Like, I could have went forward, but I didn't want to leave them. I didn't want to leave them at all, so I slowed down the process. And so I think, like, going into my 30s, I'm gonna just be more for me. Yeah. Like, yeah, team me.
That's real, and I think that's all that really matters. Because when you can show up for yourself and think about your dreams in a way in which they're attached to others, you will always persevere in those moments.
Definitely.
What do you think you're leaving in your 20s?
What do I want to leave in my 20s? Oh, okay. So, I feel like that's kind of like a loaded question. Like, what do I want to leave in my 20s?
I mean, it could be anything. Like, I'm leaving tennis shoes in my 20s, whatever.
That's your life. I like sneakers. Like, that would be you. I'm going to leave colors in 20. That'd be you. It's not going to be me. I think it just goes, it's going to always go back to self-esteem issues. Like, I'm going to leave, like, any inclination of low self-esteem in my 20s. Because, like, the 20s is hard. Like, you literally shape your life. Like, you literally figure out what it is, what you want to do, what you're called to do, who you are, like, how you make people feel. Like, it's almost annoying, like, as much as you think. Like, now that I'm going into my 30s, I would hope that don't look like that. Like, I would hope that I did all of that in my 20s. Like, I tried to figure out who I was in my 20s. I became comfortable with myself in my 20s. Like, all of those, like, I hope I figured that out in my 20s. I'm not trying to do that at 30. At 30, I want to be like, I'm here.
But you're evolving, baby. Like,
I know. I know, but I just feel like we said, even though the 20s are some of your best years, college is some of your best years, like, it's some of your hardest years, because everything, you feel absolutely everything. And even when people say they don't, they do. Like, you feel it. And so when you're feeling these emotions and trying to process them, like, some days you think it's the end of the world, and other days you just shut down, and then in another moment you might be happy. And it's like, it's not depression. It's not, it's not depression. It's just literally chaos. And I don't want that.
Yeah.
So,
but, if you see the world as chaotic, that kind of starts within.
Definitely.
You have to figure out and find that peace. And keep evolving, keep going.
Yeah, and I think that looks beautiful. Like, I think sometimes people are afraid of aging. Like, I know a lot of women more so say it like, oh, I'm afraid of growing old. But I think it's beautiful. Like, the different stages of life, like, me at 30, me at 20, me at 40, like, even when I turn 50, like, I even think about my mother and, like, how she has evolved, and just seeing that, like, seeing her go from Gwen at 40 to Gwen at 50, I'm just like, wow, like, she's beautiful. Like, she's well-rounded. Like, she's so calm and mild-tempered. Like, my mama wasn't always that way. So you see the growth, and you're like, growing older is beautiful, especially when you do, like, get to the point where you feel like you're growing older with someone. So, like, to even see my mother find love in her 50s is just kind of like, wow.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. And I think the last probably 3 years of my life has really taught me that time is an illusion.
Right.
Like, time is a gatekeeper, and that's it. Mm-hmm. Time doesn't really mean too much of anything. And, I think I learned that in people saying, like, time heal all things, and time doesn't heal all things, right?
At all.
And I know in my grief and just like some of the different things that I've gone through, it's really crazy that like I reference like me before my father's death,
Yeah.
me when I got this degree, because all it does is keep time. You know, it holds space.
Yeah.
But and think about like day by day when nothing changes. Literally
Definitely.
nothing changes. You feel like nothing is changing day by day, but then when you reflect on yourself 365 days later,
Yeah, like
you're
when
like,
you think about some of them experiences you went through, and you be like, "Dang, my reaction to that today would have been totally different."
yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's just the gatekeeper, like literally. And so as you continue to evolve and think about the woman you are and the woman you want to be, and how can you continue to progress toward her,
Yeah.
the characteristics that she has, how does she show up, how does people view her,
Yeah.
what kind of things will they say at her funeral?
I wrote a letter to myself about that one day, like, one of those Dear Future Me type letters, and it was so dope to write that. Like, I went into details about what my life looked like, what kind of work I was doing in the community, like all of that, and I was literally writing to myself in excitement, like, yeah, girl, like, cause today we did this, we did that, like, it was a dope letter, and maybe I need to go back and reread that letter, because I knew what I wanted my life to look like, and if what it felt like, and I know it involved like helping people in multiple ways, but like one thing that stood out to me in that letter was like, oh, like we literally invested in all of these properties, and we taught people how to do this and do that, and I'm just like, yeah, I know what I want my life to look like.
Yeah, and it's really interesting, and it may sound morbid, but I wrote my obituary.
Yeah.
And I actually wrote it at about 22, and not because I was thinking I was gonna die. I know that I'm gonna have a long life.
Yeah.
But I wrote it because I wanted to know all the things at the end of my life, all the things that I needed to accomplish, all of the things that I wanted to be said in my obituary.
That's a good way to think about life, though.
Yeah, like at the end of the life, and that's all I can think of. Like, I really want to hear God say, "Well done." Like, that's it.
Well done, thy good and faithful servant.
Like, that's it. And so,
yeah, that's how I feel. I want him to literally go. I want to literally go to God and be like this, and my hands be empty.
Yeah, like I use everything, literally everything that you gave me. And so, what would you tell your future self? Like, just give your future self like a couple of words of encouragement, maybe an affirmation, whatever it is that you're feeling right now. What would you give her? Maybe your 40-year-old self.
I think I would still tell her, don't sleep on yourself. Because I think that, like I said, we keep talking about evolution and evolving, and I just can only imagine the woman that I'm going to be at 40 with these lessons that I'm learning now in my 20s and even going forward in my 30s. I just think that I'm going to be unstoppable. Like, I'm really going to be unstoppable. I'm going to show up, and you're going to just know. Like, you know how so you see people walk through a room and be like we said, like, oh, she has such a grace or a presence, like, and it's demanding. It's like it demands your respect. It demands your attention. Like, that's going to be me. Like, I'm going to literally show up in the spaces like I've arrived, and it's not going to be on no cocky or anything like that. It's going to be very humble, but you just going to know. Like, I'm not going to have to introduce myself anymore.
That is you.
Yeah, like, I'm not.
No, you said that is her. That is you.
Oh, no, that's going to be me, yeah. I'm just not going to have to introduce myself anymore, and it's going to be a really peaceful feeling because I'm going to feel like I've really started to make my mark on the earth. And so when I talk about legacy, when I think of things like that, like, I need people to know my name, and I need people to know what God has done for me to get to where I'm at. So, like, I always tell God, like, as you elevate me, like, I want to ensure that you're always getting the glory, that people will be able to look at me and become a believer and see that it's possible. Like, if, God has written something for your life, which he has, or like something that he has poured into your spirit, that it is possible to execute all of those things and do so in a manner that other people will see it and be like, I can do that too. Like, I can have multiple gifts. I can do multiple things, and nothing's gonna stop me from doing it. Even when people tell me no. So
yeah,
that's it.
No, that's powerful. Yeah. I think I would give myself that message just right now, and not that I sleep on myself, but I think the fact that I don't have a problem with playing the back. I don't have a problem.
I think that's a season though, because I did that like for one of my friends. Not even to just cut you off, but I did that for one of my friends. I played the back a lot, and then it was time when I felt like God was pushing me to be the voice, to be at the front. it was terrifying. So like, you know, me, like me in these last 365 days wasn't me 2 years ago. Like, wasn't me at all. I literally was the friend that showed up to all of the spaces to support my friends. And so whether that was the photo shoot, whether it was the event or whatever, I was the back, like always putting stuff together, much like what you like doing in this space. But a part of me, I don't know if this is you, a part of me liked doing it, but a part of me knew I was supposed to be doing something more. Like I could see myself in spaces like, oh, I could do that. Like I should probably be doing stuff like that too. But it was something in me that wasn't ready yet. Like God was birthing it, but like it was kind of like he was even giving me a glimpse of what it is that life was going to start to be like. And then I was just sitting there with it like, I don't know if I want to push forward yet. I kind of just like helping people. But when it came to that day, when he finally was like, enough, like time for you to use your voice, it wasn't no stopping. And I've been talking since. Like, yeah.
Fear is paralyzing.
Yeah.
That's one thing, and I think getting to the root of it and really understanding. And I think I'm a firm believer of that. Like you clap until it's your turn.
Yeah.
You know, you support until it's your turn.
But when it's your turn, you gotta know it's your turn, and you can't be deviant. You can't.
But I think that's the part.
Avoid it. You can't do any of that. Like you gotta step into the season. Cause it's not like he's gonna stop. It's not like God is gonna just be like, okay, you're not listening, I'm gonna stop now. He's gonna always plant that seed like in you, and it's just gonna be up to you to listen. So you can, like you said earlier, you can make your life easy by doing it, doing what he says do, or you can make your life harder by living in the purpose that you know ain't your purpose.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times too, our greatest pain is what births our purpose, or what gives us the power, you know, in those moments that, you know, people want to know that you got some experience in what you're talking about. People don't want to just hear you talking and you haven't been through anything.
Yeah.
People don't want to hear you until they know and can watch you, or they saw you go through some things.
Yes, very true.
And
very
I think
true.
in those moments too, that's when you really can give all of the glory to God, you know, and know that that was through God's grace that you actually got through those moments. And so, like, I get it, you know, I understand it, and I'm just kind of like, okay, God, like, I'm tiptoeing.
Yeah.
Like, but, whew.
This is a lot. This is a great conversation.
Yeah, it was. And so for everyone out there who is feeling like, you know, you're not necessarily on your purpose, please know that you're definitely on the road, and the grace of God.
We're on the path to purpose.
Yes, and the grace of God does not take you where he does not protect you. And in those moments when you do feel lost, sometimes you have to be the light in your own tunnel to get out of that dark space. And please,
or you can be the light in somebody else's story, because I've grown to realize that helping other people helps you. Yeah. Like, you feel so much better when you're able to help somebody else.
Well, and sometimes your pain, you know, you get through your pain by helping somebody else through that exact same experience.
Very true.
And it works. It does. Honestly, you are healing yourself while you're helping others heal. Facts. So in those moments, you really just have to trust and believe the signs of what you're seeing, and really get in touch with yourself and know what you're feeling, and know, you know, even in your mind. I know for me, when I'm going through something in life, it physically comes out in my body. Like, for me, I will break out in rashes, break out in hives, or anything when something, and I have to really sit and ask myself, okay, what does this mean right now in this moment? And most of the time, pain means that something is leaving, that it's gone, you know, that it's leaving the body at that moment. And so I'm trying to think, okay, what am I birthing right now? What is trying to come out of me? What is being pushed out of me at this moment in my life? And what does this actually mean? Because I think a lot of times you can ignore it. Like, yeah, I just got a rash right here on my arm. And I mean, honestly, I really got it. You know, I got a rash right here on my arm. And I've been trying to figure out, like, Lord, what is this about? And, you know, I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
It's leaving the body.
I get it. I think that I don't know. I think that's just a good way to look at life.
Yeah, and I think that's what keeps me grounded amongst all things. Is that my perspective of no matter what. You know, I even had somebody tell me like, "Oh, you a fake optimist," and I'm like, "Baby, ain't nothing about this fake. This is the life that I live, and this is what really keeps me sane in those moments that." I'm not letting a negative thought cloud my mind, you know, for too long. Like, okay, you can come a past because I can't stop you from just coming, but you can't live there. You can stay there for a little while, but you got to go after that.
That might be a good topic that we have to bring back because I feel like in this conversation there were so many side topics that could be a whole topic.
Yeah,
we're gonna keep y'all posted.
Until next time.
Until next time, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in with us. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to our channel. Share this message with a friend and